Back now to our top story. We are getting new reaction, and there are new developments today following a decision by Iowa's largest newspaper to publish the level of security at hundreds of school districts across the state. Parents and critics very upset after the Des Moines Register published an interactive map like this one. We've chosen to black out the dots, but their map, which was posted online, color-coded and detailed the school districts that have security and those without. So the real map would show a bunch of red dots, and then the code would show you that they have no security, and then the green dots would show you that those school districts do have a security guard. Schools that did not respond were characterized with a gray dot. That led to almost instantaneous outrage, and now the Des Moines Register has pulled the map and is responding. Joining me now on the phone, Rick Green. He's vice president and editor of the Des Moines Register Media. Rick, thank you very much for being here. You're a stand-up guy for coming on because this is very controversial. And, you know, people are upset. And as a parent, I can't blame them. What were you thinking?
Well, thanks a lot, Meg. It's always good talking to you. You know, we're at this incredibly sensitive time in our country's history on the heels of Sandy Hook as it relates to guns, as it relates to school security, and obviously as it relates to the safety of our kids. Immediately after Sandy Hook, communities across Iowa and really around the country, and you guys have reported this at the same time, have started asking questions about the presence of school resource officers. Do we need to expand them? Do we need to hire them? Here in Des Moines, our police chief has proposed adding an additional 4 school resource officers to our Des Moines public school system. Other communities are weighing the same thing. Even the NRA was proposing at one point immediately after Sandy Hook, if I recall correctly, an armed guard at every school. So almost instantaneously when all this started to emerge and as we thoughtfully started to report the story, we heard from residents, from taxpayers, and most importantly from parents around Iowa asking 3 really simple questions. Does my school district have resource officers? What kind of police presence exists in my child's school? And I guess the biggest question that was asked is this district, our district, taking seriously any potential public safety threats that could be averted by the presence of a school resource officer? Incredibly legitimate questions that I felt needed to be examined, and I think it's the role of a great media site like the Register to ask and answer those questions, but to be as sensitive and to do it as accurately and thoughtfully as we can.
And you admit, Rick, you didn't do that.
No, I'm not admitting it. What we did, it was actually a pretty revelatory look at the fact that we have 54 school districts that have school resource officers, and most of the other ones across Iowa do not. I think you've kind of misled viewers a little bit with this, Megan, in that we didn't say no security, because a lot of these school districts, while they might not have school resource officers, they still have the presence of police officers or deputy sheriffs.
Well, let me interrupt you, Rick, and respectfully show you one of the interactive pullouts that you put on your map. Now, we have blocked out the answer as to whether this particular school district has officers or doesn't, so because we don't want to publish that information. But look at it. You put up there Southeast Webster Grand. Employ school resource officers or private security guards, ? And then you answered the question. You answered it. And I'm not going to tell the viewers whether you said yes or no, but you answered it.
But, Megan, what you're not asking me is, do some of these school districts that have not hired school resource officers still have security? Do they still have police officers that will occasionally go through the schools, or sheriff deputies that patrol school districts or school buildings? Yes, they do, and that wasn't what was asked about it.
But that's not the same, Rick. That is not the same. Of course, you publish in your article, you know, some of them are considering adding school resource officers. Some of them have local police who come through occasionally. Right. It's not the same as telling everyone there is no full-time security officer within this school district.
Well, like I said, it's a time for us to be incredibly thoughtful about how we ask and how we answer these questions. And it's, you know, the role of a really great media site to be really thoughtful in how you proceed with this whole thing.
Why not just put up then the list of districts? You know, there are 348 districts in Iowa. Put up the list of 348 and put down the contact information for parents to call.
That's a very good idea. Very good idea with how we try to proceed with this whole thing. You know, the tricky part out of all of this, Megan, is that when taxpayers and residents are calling us to inquire about how safe their kids' schools are, we have to investigate it.
Tell them to call the school district. Why do you have to post in Des Moines whether Sioux City has got a security officer? Why is that necessary? I mean, there is no discussion in Iowa right now about using state taxpayer funds to pay for security throughout the state. This is a district-by-district issue.
It is a district-by-district issue, and it has been talked about at the State House at the same time. The very pertinent topic that I think is has consumed a lot of folks, both at the local level, moms and dads, as well as teachers and superintendents, taxpayers, as well as legislators. Listen, after it posted, I immediately started getting a couple phone calls. My team alerted me to it, and we took it down. And in a response to be as thoughtful to the situation, to make sure that we were being as vigilant and trying to convey the proper information in a way that...
I respect that, Rick, and I think our viewers respect that. You took it down. When the controversy emerged, you did, and good for you, because
well, it wasn't
a lot of others wouldn't have done it. But then you did say that, there's two problems. Number one, it's tough to unring the bell, because, I look at that map online and I can see there's a whole lot more districts that have no security than there are that have security. So if I'm some psycho, I might want to play my odds. I didn't know that information yesterday. Now I do. Secondly, your online statement said that you revised the map and that you are posting a revised map to only show the 54 school districts that do have resource officers. Have you now reconsidered that? Because, you do a little math and you can figure out, if you give half the equation, the other half is pretty obvious.
Well, let me stop you first and say that original map, which was up for about 20 minutes and was taken down, isn't anywhere on our site, and you're the only one that's out there showing it and talking about it.
I'm not showing it. The Blaze, to its credit,
the
theblaze.com broke this, and that's where we found it, and that's a very popular website.
Sure, and it's still on its site in a PDF form, which is incredibly unfortunate.
Well, it's not their fault, Rick. It's your fault.
No.
Don't you see that? This is your fault, sir.
So the original map showed no schools. It showed no addresses. It did not go into detail as to where these schools were. But do I wish we would have handled it a little bit differently, Megyn? Obviously, I wish we would have. But again, it's that whole notion of trying to balance the needs of taxpayers and parents who are asking very legitimate questions, turning to us to try to answer that, and at the same time being very thoughtful about how do you do everything you can to make sure that you do your job, respond to your readers, both those that are asking questions and those that we're going to try to synthesize that information.
So just to clarify, because I'm up against a hard break, you are not going to repost another map, modified or otherwise?
I'm not looking at posting a map right now, but I still think there's a very legitimate question about how do Iowa taxpayers across our state and probably around the country,
I got it,
how do they handle this idea of applying more school resource officers?
With all due respect, honestly, I appreciate you coming on. I know this wasn't an easy interview, and I'm glad you were here. So
Megyn, it's always good talking to you. Thanks for your time.